As the months passed, Tommy and Lily continued to work hard, but it seemed like the more they did, the further they fell behind. The farm's needs grew more urgent, with fences falling into disrepair and crops struggling to grow. Tommy spent long hours in the field, trying to fix what he could, while Lily continued to care for Samuel and manage the house. But it was never enough. One evening, after a particularly hard day, Tommy collapsed into a chair by the fire, his face drawn with fatigue. Lily sat beside him, holding Samuel in her arms. She looked at Tommy, her eyes filled with concern. "You've been working too hard, Tommy," she said softly. "You can't keep pushing yourself like this. The farm will be here tomorrow. You need rest." Tommy shook his head. His shoulders slumped. "I can't rest, Lily. The farm needs me. You need me. I can't let this place fall apart." Lily reached out, gently taking his hand. "Tommy, we're in this together. You don't have to do it all alone. We'll find a way to make it work." But even as she said the words, Tommy wasn't sure he believed them. The weight of responsibility felt like it was crushing him. He had worked so hard, given everything he had, and still, it felt like it wasn't enough. Every day, the farm seemed to demand more of him. And now, with Samuel in the picture, everything seemed even more complicated. The next morning, Mr. Davis came by for a visit. Tommy had been avoiding him for the past few weeks, too caught up in his own worries to seek advice. But Mr. Davis, ever watchful, could see the strain in Tommy's eyes. "Tommy," Mr. Davis said as he approached, his voice steady and calm, "you've been pushing yourself too hard. I can see it in you. You can't keep going like this." Tommy sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I know, Mr. Davis, but I don't know what else to do. The farm needs me. Lily needs me. Samuel needs me." Mr. Davis nodded slowly, understanding the weight of Tommy's words. "I've seen it before, Tommy. I've seen good men work themselves to the bone, thinking that's the only way to make things right. But that's not the way. You have to find a balance. You can't give everything to the farm and nothing to your family. You have to make time for the things that matter most." Tommy looked at Mr. Davis, his heart heavy with doubt. "How do I do that? How do I find balance when everything feels like it's falling apart?" Mr. Davis leaned forward, his voice quiet but firm. "Start small. Take time each day to appreciate what you have. You don't have to fix everything all at once. If you focus on what you can control and take care of the people you love, the rest will follow." Tommy thought about Mr. Davis's words long after he left. Could it really be that simple? Could he learn to balance his work with his family, instead of constantly chasing after more. The days after Mr. Davis's visit were difficult for Tommy. He wanted to believe that he could find balance, but old habits were hard to break. He continued to wake up early and work late into the night. But this time, something was different. He began to listen to Lily more carefully, to notice when she seemed particularly tired or when Samuel needed him. Slowly, he started to take breaks during the day, even if it was just for a few moments to play with Samuel or share a meal with Lily. One afternoon, Tommy stood in the field, staring at the crops that still seemed to struggle. But instead of pushing himself harder, he took a deep breath and turned back to the house. He realized that the farm would always be there, but his family needed him in ways that the land never would. When he returned home, he found Lily sitting on the porch, rocking Samuel gently in her arms. She looked up at him, her eyes warm, though still tinged with worry. "I'm sorry, Lily," Tommy said, sitting down beside her. "I've been so focused on the farm that I've forgotten what's really important. I've forgotten to be here with you, with Samuel. I'm going to do better." Lily smiled, the first real smile Tommy had seen from her in weeks. "I know you will, Tommy. We'll get through this, together." From that moment on, Tommy made a conscious effort to balance his work with his time at home. He began to teach Charlie the things he had learned about farming, slowly bringing his son into the work of the farm. Step by step, Lily felt more supported, and Tommy found a new sense of peace in his life. The months passed, and the farm continued to face its challenges. But Tommy, Lily, and Charlie grew stronger together. They learned to rely on each other, to share the burdens of the farm and the responsibilities of raising a family. Even though the farm wasn't perfect, it became a place where love and patience grew, just like the crops in the fields. Tommy no longer obsessed over fixing everything at once. He worked hard, but he also made time for the things that mattered most: his family, his home, and the love they shared. Slowly, the weight of the farm didn't feel so heavy anymore. With each passing day, Tommy learned that true happiness didn't come from having more. It came from appreciating what he already had. One evening, as they sat together by the fire, Tommy looked at Lily and Charlie. A deep sense of peace settling over him. They had faced so many challenges together, but through it all, they had grown stronger, closer, and more content. "I used to think that I needed more to be happy," Tommy said softly. "But now I know that what we have is enough. We have each other, and that's all we really need." Lily smiled, and Charlie, who was now old enough to help with small tasks on the farm, beamed with pride. Together, they had found something more valuable than all the land or crops in the world: a life filled with love, patience, and the strength to face whatever came next. As the years passed, Tommy and Lily's farm flourished in its own way. The crops grew steadier, the repairs on the house were slowly made, and Charlie grew into a young man, ready to take on more of the farm's work. But the most important change of all was the way they looked at their lives. Tommy and Lily had learned that happiness wasn't found in chasing after more. It was found in appreciating what they already had. They had learned that family was the foundation of everything, and that by working together, they could overcome any challenge life threw their way. One evening, after a long day of work, they sat together on the porch, watching the sunset. Tommy felt a deep sense of peace settle over him, knowing that no matter what the future held, they would face it together. And for the first time in a long time, Tommy knew in his heart that they had everything they needed. Tommy and Lily had come a long way since the early days of their struggles. The farm, though still not perfect, had slowly started to show signs of improvement. The crops, though small, were growing steadily. And the animals, though requiring constant care, seemed to be thriving. The once worn-out house was beginning to feel more like a home, with repairs slowly being made, and the rooms were filled with laughter and love. Charlie had grown into a helpful young boy, now old enough to do small chores around the farm. His days were filled with learning from Tommy, watching his father carefully, and asking questions about how to take care of the animals or how to work the soil. Tommy smiled with pride every time Charlie asked him for advice. He remembered being Charlie's age, eager to learn and be involved, and it filled him with hope for the future. Lily, too, had found a rhythm in her own routine. With Tommy helping more around the farm, she could focus on the house and Samuel, who was now walking and talking in simple words. She would often spend her mornings with Samuel by her side, her heart full of joy as she saw him growing up healthy and strong. She had always wanted a bigger family, and now she had 2 children to love and care for. But despite the improvements, the farm was still hard work. Tommy spent long hours in the fields, and there were always repairs to be made. Yet, he felt a sense of peace he hadn't known before. He no longer felt the weight of the world on his shoulders. The farm wasn't perfect, but it was theirs, and that was enough. One evening, after another long day of work, Tommy sat down on the porch with Lily. Samuel was asleep in his crib, and Charlie was finishing his chores. The air was cool, and the sky above was painted with soft shades of pink and orange. "You know," Tommy said, looking at the horizon, "sometimes I wonder how we made it through. There were days when I thought we might not make it, that we were just working to survive. But now, I see it. We've built something here. We've built a life." Lily smiled, her eyes shining in the fading light. We have, Tommy. It's not always easy, but it's ours. And that's what matters. Tommy took her hand, his heart full. I used to think that happiness came from having more land, more crops, more children. But now I see that happiness is in what we already have. We have each other. We have our health. And we have this farm, this home. Lily squeezed his hand, leaning her head on his shoulder. I agree, Tommy. We have everything we need.